On the last episode of me,
I'm underway. First leg of the trip.
I left Maine on October 30th to head down to North Carolina, where I would leave my boat for the winter.
First sunrise. It was cold last night.
Oh, right there.
Motoring into the Cape Cod Canal. It's cold. And all I have is this sweatshirt, but I can't run below because I'm exhausted. I got into Block Island and it was pitch black. So intense I couldn't see anything. I'm going through Hell's Gate right now.
Bye, Manhattan. Hello, wavy, nasty guck out there.
It's blowing 25 to 30 knots. I have discovered that I'm either incontinent or my fall weather pants leak. So this morning is the morning I'm supposed to leave Great Kills and make my way to Cape May. But I just listened to the weather and it's supposed to start dying down tonight. This is what it looks like outside. Day that I'm leaving, pretty auspicious, I think. Right. Okay, time to go get pummeled. The sun is setting, it's blowing 30 knots, and the waves are about 5 to 7 feet. I really hope everything dies down by tonight or it's going to be super terrifying. It's 4 in the morning. I've discovered over the course of the night that my anchor chain locker has no drain and it's filling with water alarmingly quickly and emptying out through the entire bow of the boat into the head. So I just probably took out 3 gallons of water with my little pump and I'm going to keep trying. It's really hard to be up there though because the boat's moving all over the place. The situation, the whole V-berth is just soaking wet. Everything, the hatch is leaking, anchor chain locker is dripping all over the place. I'm trying to pump it out.
The next morning, the waves had gone down a little bit and it was also daylight, so I went back up to the anchor chain locker and tried to pump out some more water. I had been taking on an incredible amount of water through the hawse holes in the front of the boat, and what I hadn't realized in my overhaul was, well, I actually hadn't touched the anchor chain locker at all because I just didn't know to look at it, but there were no drains in the locker. And so when the water comes in the hawse holes, it just stays there and eventually overflows, going through the entire V-berth, pulling down into the bilge in the head, which is where I had initially found the water. So I spent the rest of that trip pumping water out of that locker and trying to come up with a solution for the next time.
Well, I made it through the night. It's a balmy 39 degrees, super damp. It's beautiful. The wind has calmed down to 15 knots, which is crazy. I might even shake out one of the reefs in my Maine. And the water intrusion has stopped because the waves aren't crashing over the bow of the boat anymore. So life is looking better. So a little recap of yesterday. 35 knot winds are not fun. I was honestly terrified a lot of the time. So one of the hardest parts was putting up the main. I didn't want to put it up on the mooring because there was a really narrow, shallow channel that I had to get out of and I wanted control. But since my electric auto helm was broken, I have no way of keeping my boat into the wind other than lashing the tiller, which doesn't work when there's 7-foot seas and 35 knot winds. So it took me probably at least 25 minutes to get the main up. I had to keep running back and forth to the tiller and getting it up in 10-foot increments. That was super frustrating. Also, my boots are really slippery, but don't worry, I always wear a harness.
And then I had to turn at one point. I was going downwind, and I was thinking, wow, I would hate to have to not be going downwind right now. I was surfing the waves at 10 knots. It was crazy. But I had to turn to stay in the channel, and I almost got knocked down. I was standing on the what's normally vertical part of my cockpit, and the tops of the seats were in the water. And right when it happened, I got this feeling like everything's gonna be okay. I knew my boat could handle it, and I knew that I would hang on and it was gonna be fine, and that was this very strange sense of calm right as that was happening. But all the other bits were just, holy shit, way too much. And then it was supposed to die down last night, but it didn't. I mean, I definitely saw 25 knot winds pretty steadily all night long. But I put the wind vane up once it stopped blowing 30 and managed to grab a bunch of 20-minute cat naps. So, feeling pretty good today. Super glad the wind's down to a nice 20. I've just had some saltines and tea for breakfast. There's stew cooking on the stove. I should be in Cape May in a couple hours. Record time for me. I've never been there before, so I guess any time that I made was record time, but this is record time. Right. Is that the locker has heating hard into big winds, and the water was just pouring into the anchor chain locker where it was overflowing, running through underneath the V-berth through all of those compartments, and then pooling in the bilge in the head. And then it was getting from there inside of the locker in the head. And luckily I store all my dirty clothes down there, so they did soak up a lot of the water, which made it so it didn't slosh any further. But now I have a bunch of dirty, wet clothes that I'm just not thinking about right now because I don't want to. That's kind of a horrible thing to deal with. So my solution last night was to run forward with a Ziploc baggie and some string, and I just lashed it over the holes where the anchor chain comes. It was not a great fix, but I mean, while I was up there, I was getting sprayed over my head, so it was a good temporary situation. I'm gonna try to fix it better when I get into Cape May. I'm almost at Cape May, and super ironically, the wind has totally died, and now I have to motor. I'm not really sure what this weird thing is, but there is a military naval base here, so I'm guessing it's one of their weird pieces of equipment. Anyway, can't wait to get in, drop the hook, and get some actual sleep. Cape May is a little bit of a fuzz for me. It was kind of my tiredest point of my trip. I anchored there by the Coast Guard station and rowed ashore to the beach, had a really nice walk, found a bucket that I still have to this day, and then realized that I was trespassing on government property. I stayed in Cape May for 2 nights, waiting for the next weather system to pass through. It was nasty wind in the 50s out there, but it was also starting to be the middle of November, and I was sort of staying just ahead of the snow line, and I also had a deadline because I had a plane ticket back to work at the beginning of December. So I was feeling pressure to leave. I didn't want to leave. I was exhausted. And I ended up leaving on a pretty nasty, windy day to sail from Cape May to Norfolk, Virginia. That was my last big push of the trip. This is another boat that left at the same time as I did, and I was just looking over at them, and oh my god, is that what I look like? I can see their whole bottom of their boat. Nice job on the anti-fouling, by the way, there, buddy. But yeah, sometimes it's crazy. You know, you think that what you're looking at is just ridiculous ocean, and you never picture your boat to be doing the things you see other boats doing. But that one is a good 10 feet bigger than mine, so my little boat must look ridiculous, but I'm so glad that I can see them and what they're doing out there because, that's crazy. It It took me just 2 days, 1 night to sail to Norfolk, and by the time I got in, I was, again, super tired, super cold, but this represented the last leg of my trip in offshore areas because at Norfolk I was popping in to the waterway, and what I ended up doing was the Dismal Swamp, which I didn't even know was a thing until I got there, but it was mine and Gecko's first set of locks. I had an amazing experience, and it just felt incredible to be able to not be freezing and offshore and in giant waves, and to actually feel like I was getting somewhere. And also, did not think I was going to be doing locks on that trip, so that was cool. The first day in the Dismal Swamp was dismal and rainy, but the second day, it was amazing. I finally was warm. I'd shed some layers down to my long underwear, and it was sunny and flat as flat things. It was crazy. So crazy.
That is correct.
It's so beautiful in here. This is the Dismal Swamp. I'm super glad I came. I did not realize I could push Gecko to go 5 knots under motor, but there's no wind, current, or sea against me. We're pushing. Well, this is pretty much as fast as we can go, but it's the speed I have to go to get between the 2 locks to make it to Goat Island, which is where I'm stopping for the night. So, go Gek!
I don't normally like motoring at all, but in this case it was just incredible to be able to be not totally slammed by weather. And how beautiful. Mid-November in North Carolina is sort of also the tail end of fall, but I was still getting really beautiful colors, crisp days. It felt like I was actually on a trip now and not just pushing hard against weather. I could relax a little bit and enjoy my surroundings more than just fighting the elements, so I was super happy. The Dismal Swamp took me a couple days, and they were just peaceful and restful as I was heading towards the grander waterway on my way to Oriental, North Carolina. I was in touch with family friends who my parents met when they were sailing around the world, and they told me, "You should try to get here for Thanksgiving." I originally had not thought that I could get to Oriental by Thanksgiving, but all of a sudden I realized that if I pushed a little bit, I could definitely make it. The last 4 or 5 days of my trip, I rediscovered the meaning of the word warm and remembered that hanging out in the cockpit is a possibility when you're not freezing every part of your body off. It was really awesome. I arrived in Oriental the day before Thanksgiving. The first morning that I woke up there, my family friends, Tim and Jennifer, gave me a ring and asked me if I wanted to join the Thanksgiving bike around Oriental, which I did. I ended up putting my boat in a slip at Whitaker Creek Marina, where I left it for the winter while I went back to work my last contract in Antarctica before I quit to be a jobless sailor bum, which is where I am right now. The cool thing about having my boat in Whitaker Creek Marina is that it's actually the marina where my little sister was born. So it really is kind of a full circle crazy thing. When my parents finished their circumnavigation, they found out that they were pregnant with my sister and went up to North Carolina, put their boat at a slip in Whitaker Creek Marina, not the same one that I was in, but same dock, and had my sister. And that's where we started our second boat trip from on our 33-foot steel-hulled sloop driver. So it felt really good to me to put my boat there for the winter and start my trip from there, because it was like a giant, weird, full circle thing that only happens in small worlds. I was gone for about 4 months working and saving up money so that I could do this trip. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this series. It ended up being way longer than I thought it was going to be, because honestly, I didn't know that I had so much material. I kind of thought, I wasn't thinking of doing YouTubes when I started sailing, when I did that leg anyway. And I just had a little iPhone 5S, and I was recording, I don't know why, probably because humans feel a need to leave something behind on the earth. I think it was always in the back of my head to do something, and I think partially I was thinking maybe I would just share it with friends. I don't really know. Anyway, I had no idea the plethora of information that I left behind. So this has been really fun for me to see how far I've come and all of that hippie stuff. Thank you guys for watching this last installment of my throwback series. I put out new videos every 2 weeks, and in the next 2 weeks I will be showing you what I did when I got back to Panama to get ready to cross the canal and ready for the Pacific, which is super exciting. Thank you so much to all of my patrons who are making this possible for me to do. As you guys can see, I only saved for 4 months for this trip, so I left with almost zero money, and you guys are making it so that I haven't had to stop and work yet. My goal is to get to New Zealand on the money that I have and get a job there and do some big boat repairs that I'm kind of putting off because they don't need to happen yet, and I definitely can't afford them. If you're interested in seeing more regular daily-ish updates of what I'm doing, I have an Instagram account at @BoatLizard, and I like to post stories and then a couple photos every week. I just put some really cool photos up yesterday. I met an amazing sailor couple from New Zealand, and they said that when I was in Cologne having my boat boarded by the advisor to go through the canal, they were anchored next to me, and they took pictures of the pilot boat approaching my boat and the advisor hopping on, so I put those on Instagram. It was really crazy to meet them and for them to give me those photos. It was awesome. Thank you, Tish, for putting these videos from Dropbox onto YouTube for me. It really helps with my slow internet problems and makes my Mondays a lot less stressful. The song that I put, my best friend plays hang drum, which is really cool. I don't know how to describe it, but you should Google it. I asked him to do some recordings for me because I think it's really beautiful, and that's one of the songs that he just came up with out of his little head, so that was really nice to have that in there. Thanks, Jesse. I think that's all the things that I have to tell you guys. I know I say the same ones every week, but sometimes it's hard to remember. Thank you for all your really nice comments. I do love reading those, and when I started doing these videos, I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep doing them because it felt a little bit conceited, and it was the comments that kept me going because you guys are so nice and it's fun to interact with you. So thank you for that. And I will see you guys in 2 weeks.